let's talk autoimmune. Anytime you are dealing, or I have a patient that comes in with autoimmune or an autoimmune or is worried about developing an autoimmune, I always want to look at inflammation, any kind of systemic inflammation, because that's going to drive the autoimmune process. There is a great kind of an analogy that I saw McCall McPherson use. So I did not make this up, but I have explained it to a lot of patients this way, and I thought it may be helpful for you also. McCall McPherson owns Modern Thyroid Clinic in Texas. She is wonderful. But I had her explain kind of toxic load and inflammatory load in the body by using a water bottle. So I'm going to use this one here. I know I've done a video before on drinking out of plastic water bottles, so you can see this is what I predominantly drink out of. And I just fill it up. I have a Berkey at home, and so, really filtered water, and there's different ones you can buy out there, but this one's really good, and then I'll use it a few times and clean it and throw it out or whatever. But anyways, all glass. So when you're considering autoimmunity in the body, you can see here I have water to about right here in the bottle, and we'll say this is a body, right? We're all going to have a certain amount of toxic load at any given time. We can step outside with environmental pollutants. Maybe you drank, maybe you took an antibiotic, maybe you got Botox, whatever it is. That's always going to add a little bit of toxins or toxic load to the body. So you're not really ever going to be without a toxic load, but you always want to keep it on the lower side. So as we start to add things that create a toxic load in the body, it increases inflammation and increases inflammation and increases inflammation. Once you start to get here to the top, that's when you start to turn on those autoimmune symptoms. Maybe there's joint pain, maybe it's increased inflammation, it's bloating, it's increased food sensitivities, fatigue, brain fog. There's so many different symptoms depending upon what autoimmune might be turning on in your body. I deal a lot with like Hashimoto's in my office. So like maybe for a Hashimoto's patient, you're gonna have increased food sensitivities, definitely brain fog, definitely fatigue, definitely pain in the joints. And so as you start to get closer to the top of that bottle, that's when these symptoms start to turn on. And then once the toxic load starts to overflow the bottle, that's when you've actually turned on an autoimmune. That's what we really want to alleviate, right? Because once you turn on an autoimmune, it doesn't really go away. You can get it to go into remission, but you have to figure out what the triggers are. And so that's what I try to explain to patients a lot. Trying to figure out what those triggers are sometimes can be really simple. Other times they can be really tricky. Sometimes it's a food, sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's a multitude of different things. And I'm not somebody that is super strict with, I realize we want to enjoy life and there's things that we want to enjoy. I personally don't eat gluten. I will use cream in my coffee, but otherwise I don't really eat dairy because it's really inflammatory to me. I make sure I get proper sleep. I have stress management. I get movement. I have good nutrition. All of those things are really important to me because they help keep my toxic load lower. But anytime I'm dealing with autoimmunity or somebody that is starting to turn on those symptoms, we have to kind of reverse the process, lower the inflammatory load by decreasing the toxic load, and hopefully starting to turn off those symptoms before something happens. But I really love this analogy. I saw her explain it in one of her videos. She's really, really wonderful, and I don't think that it could be explained any better than that. So if you feel like maybe you're having any kind of symptoms like I described, or there's some thyroid things going on or whatever, please feel free to reach out. We're here at Midtown Atlanta Chiropractic, and otherwise, I hope this is helpful.